Hello and welcome back to the semifinals of the World Championship in 3D Ages. Today we are taking a look at Group 3 again, and those are the standings that we had when we left off after the last game here on this channel. Kyshantry had a really nice start, having 14 points after 3 games finished. Dots only having 7 points, but at least only 2 games finished, while HCsquared and especially Wolves are quite a bit behind at this point. And today we are going to take a look at a 3-player game, and it will be the 3-player game between the top 3 players. So yeah, I will be very excited to see how that will be going, and let's see if Kyshantry can keep his strong position, or if some players can maybe start a comeback. Alright, now without further ado, let's take a look at the game. Alright, so here we are at the game, and first of all, as always, we are going to start with taking a look at the leaders and wonders, and we do see that there is Marlene Dietrich in Fleming, but no Chaplin in Hollywood. We have Pierre, but no internet. There's also Sid Meier, but no internet. Sid Meier, Steve Jobs, and Einstein as some lab leaders. There is also Spaceflight, Manhattan Project, so definitely a bit of science synergy. Gandhi to hide behind. Also there's the Red Cross. We have Suez Canal but no Cook in H2, Maria but no Ocean Liner, some culture leaders with Anthony Gaudi and Shakespeare, both Newton and Nobel as the science leaders and Napoleon as the only military action leader. Some strong wonders, but maybe the strongest one with the Ocean Liner missing. We have both Universitas and Silk Road in H1, Himeji Castle but no Great Wall. We have the Machu Picchu, Michelangelo for example with the Machu Picchu. There's Chiang Shishka as the only military action leader in H1, Nostradamus, Genghis Khan to help with the strength, Eleanor, Isabella maybe for some colonization setup, and then Leonardo for some lab and printing press synergy. Also we have actually, as we have seen maybe in the row, a lot of wonders are still in the deck to come out, also Hammurabi, so that's also interesting. Only the Rome roads will be available to take for the players at their starting pick. Alright, so let's take a look at the game. HCsquared is in first position and starts by taking Hippocrates. I think in first position Hippocrates should be the better pick than Ashoka, so that looks fine to me. Kyshantry then goes for Ashoka. He could have just taken the Rome roads, taken the one wonder that he can take. But I mean, Ashoka is a solid leader in second position, already better than in first. He can take him together with the yellow card, even though he probably still wants to use the Ridgeland immediately on building the third mine. So I think an understandable decision, but just taking Rome roads maybe also would have been fine, but then maybe he would need to go with Caesar Sansu, or maybe hoping that Hammurabi will drop out of the deck. So I think it's a fine choice to just go for Ashoka here. But now I would expect that Dots probably will go for the Rome roads. Yes, he will go for it, and probably together with the stockpile. Yes. Now it's HCsquared's turn. Ooh, and actually only one wonder comes out of the deck. One of the rare situations where, yeah, it's just that there are not enough wonders that every player can take one from HA. So let's see. I don't think that HCsquared will go for the Colossus for 2 civil actions though, especially with Silk Road and Universitas being in the game and being maybe a nice wonder to get at the start. Instead, he's just taking the Engineering Genius. Oh, speaking of Universitas, Universitas is actually revealed very early, and Kyshantry is willing to pay the price, doesn't want to go for Colossus, doesn't want to leave this early Universitas to HCsquared, who has already taken the Engineering Genius. Quite costly, but it could be worth it, and now I expect him to just build a third mine with the last action. Interestingly, without using the Ridgeland, he now spent a lot of civil actions to take the Universitas, so it could be even harder to get the Ashoka bonus going if he now uses the yellow card. So I think understandable that he is not using it, and maybe the better choice anyway to then maybe a lot easier get the Ashoka bonus going. Even though now there's of course the risk that maybe he doesn't find a nice time to use it. Dots has 2 leaders available for 1 civil action and goes for Sansu here and just does standard stuff. Isn't willing to pay 3 for the knights, and that of course would be way too expensive. HCsquared, now that Universitas is gone, will go for the Colossus, increases his population and takes the knights. There is Sansu in the game. With Colossus, who knows, maybe he can go for a bit of a military setup himself, and so he's willing to delay the second lab in order to get those knights. Kyshantry now offers the open borders agreement to HCsquared, meaning both of them have now a bit of help defending against a potential strength push from Sansu. Kyshantry will this turn go for Ashoka. He will take Isabella in hand. Let's see if he will just elect her immediately, but I guess he will keep Ashoka just because there's a chance that soon he will be able to activate the food bonus, and Isabella will just give him 1 resource production only anyway, so I think it's a good choice just keeping her in hand for now. Could have maybe also taken a Bread and Circuses for Pierre and leaving himself open for a different leader, because Isabella, maybe not the greatest one, but I mean, if he has Universitas, he will get some additional science, and with Isabella some additional resources, so maybe that will he will have a nice harmony with that. Dot seeds and opens the development of warfare. He has a free population to take that free warrior. That makes it so that he can't build a second lab, so instead of that he will start building some steps on the Rome roads, also takes the breakthroughs to get some additional science going. Then we have HCsquared, who seeds and opens the development of crafts. He will take the free warrior, increases his population, and will finish the Colossus without the engineering genius, because using it would have caused corruption. Let's see if he will take even another copy of engineering genius. He will, and who knows, I mean, at the next turn he will have collected the 3rd Hippocrates token. There are 2 leaders coming down the row. Maybe he will go for one of those and then actually go for the Taj Mahal for free. I do think that could be a scenario that could happen here. Kyshantry then takes the monarchy in hand, has now 3 colors, and thanks to the development of crafts, has actually just enough resources to finish the Universitas, can also take the free warriors now, producing 3 food, is still not in consumption, and yeah, that's looking quite strong, having that Universitas finished that early, and now having the Ashoka bonus up and running. The next turn he needs some civil actions, though, to increase his population, and is maybe a little bit limited because of that. Dots this turn finishes the Rome roads, increases his population, and takes the alchemy. He didn't build a lab yet. He has enough science and resource to just build an alchemy directly, so I think that looks like a good choice. Also, there's Leonardo in the game. Let's see if my Taj Mahal prediction will actually come true or not. HCsquared, first of all, seeds, opens the development of markets, takes, I think, additional resources from that development, yes. And then he will increase his population, builds the 2nd lab. Will he go for Eleanor? Yes, he will go for Eleanor. Will he go for the Taj Mahal? Yes, he will go for the Taj Mahal. Okay. So, yeah, that I think makes a lot of sense, because if he doesn't take a wonder now, he doesn't know if he can use the Engineering Genius A. He doesn't know when he will be able to use the Engineering Genius 1, and taking that for free now, with probably wanting to replace Hippocrates anyway, I think sounds like a good idea. Kyshantry will increase his population, takes the Code of Laws, develops it, goes for Isabella now. I guess that has to do with getting out of corruption. Now he can increase his population and get out of corruption if he wants to, and that is also what he will do. Maybe if he has a tactic, he can even get strongest now. And he indeed has the Legion tactic. Now it's Dot's turn. He seeds and opens the development of settlement. He also plays a Legion tactic. Let's see if he will go for Nostradamus, and that will be the tactic that will be upgraded. It looks like that. Yes, he goes for Nostradamus, develops the alchemy, builds an alchemy, and now I guess either goes for a 2nd upgrade or increases his population. He goes for the 2nd upgrade, just getting his science production going as quickly as possible. Then HCsquared seeds and opens the development of religion. He has a free population. Both Kyshantry and Dots have one as well. And when we take a look at the events, 3 have been seeded by HCsquared and 2 by Dots. HCsquared takes the free religion, builds a step of the Taj Mahal, uses the Engineering Genius 1, and I guess he also will soon use the Engineering Genius A, but for now he actually goes for cartography. Interesting that he did use the Engineering Genius 1 instead of the Engineering Genius A, but I guess he can just use... I guess it makes, of course, completely sense. The last step costs, of course, only 2 resources, so that makes sense, and he can still finish the Taj Mahal with the Engineering Genius A at the next turn. And with him going for the cartography, that's certainly a sign that maybe he put some colonies into the deck, or maybe, I guess Kyshantry didn't seed any events, so he, with Isabella, I thought maybe he could have put a colony in there as well, but of course he hasn't seeded an event yet. Kyshantry seeds an event now though, and actually the first colony is revealed immediately, so HCsquared developing that cartography just in time, and I think with 4 he of course wins it for just a warrior. There's a Suez in there, so that's definitely not bad for him. Kyshantry increases his population, builds even another warrior, is now at 6 strength and the strongest. If he would have stayed at 5, he would be the weakest at Dot's turn, so that may be a reason for him to go for that warrior. Doesn't build a second lab yet, but thanks to Universitas has some solid science production anyway, and he takes now the iron, swordsman and a ridgeland. Can maybe still use the ridgeland A if he goes for the iron at the next turn. Then it's Dot's turn, he seeds with Nostradamus, and a scientific breakthrough is revealed. He just went for the alchemies at the turn before, and now gets rewarded with 4 additional science, and he will use that science immediately to go for the Code of Laws, going up to 5 civil actions, takes the breakthrough to have even more science. He still needs a government form and a mine upgrade, so he will need a lot of science, and can use the breakthrough still quite nicely, even after now having nice science production and just getting the scientific breakthrough. He also builds a warrior, gets a bit stronger, HCsquared seeds, and a good harvest is revealed. No one has upgraded the food production yet, so I'll just gain 2 food out of that. HCsquared then finishes the Taj Mahal this turn, increases population, takes the urban growth, plays the fighting band tactic interestingly. Maybe doesn't plan on building a 3rd warrior soon, otherwise he maybe could have just copied the upgraded legion tactic, but of course a fighting band tactic can also be nice for colonization if he for example expects something like inhabited territory or vast territory 1. Kyshantry seeds, there's another colony, not inhabited or vast, but a strategic territory. HCsquared bidding 5, maybe making it look like that he has 1 H1 defense card in hand, but Kyshantry is actually the one who wins it. Has 2 defense cards and is willing to pay 3 resources with Isabella, so he now also has 1 colony, and the contest for the Suez is maybe now a little bit more open. Kyshantry also now being the strongest has just lost that 4th warrior that he built and is now went now up from 6 to 7 strength. Also he will go for some iron upgrades, can use both of the ridgelands, and will take the Magic Castle. I think that's a nice grab. He can finish it immediately at the next turn if he wants to. Actually can also copy the upgraded Legion tactic. Now it's Dot's turn. He seeds and opens the Knowledge of the Ancients. When we take a look at the event deck again, we can see that yellow HCsquared is seeded 1, the others have seeded 2 events now. Dots can increase his population twice, but it's still not enough for him to get out of corruption, so he will build an additional warrior, also making him stronger than HCsquared again. He takes the cultural heritage, the reserves, and also a copy of drama. Let's see what synergies there were for the drama. Marlene in H3, Anthony Gaudi, Shakespeare in H2, so no Bach was maybe the biggest synergy, especially with being a low resource production, but some other leaders like Gaudi and Marlene who maybe can work nicely with the drama. Now H2 starts, HCsquared gets some additional Colossus draws. Will he seed an H2 event immediately? Yes, indeed. And he opens another colony, the developed territory 1, after Kyshantry has sent away some colonization cards for the last colony. And now HCsquared is able to win that colony again very cheaply for just a warrior. He then develops the Knights, maybe as a better tactic than that fighting band tactic, and maybe doesn't want to go for the upgraded Legion tactic. Builds the Knight, takes the irrigation, goes for an upgrade. Will he reveal a tactic? He actually has the Assar's tactic drawn. Wait, why does he have that many cards already? Okay, of course, because of Eleanor. He had the Colossus draws and the Eleanor draws, meaning he had 5 H2 cards before his first real draw step, which is quite funny. I mean, it would have become even more insane if now the strategic territory would have been revealed and he would have been able to win it. Then he could have had 8 cards before his first real draw step, but 5 is already also quite nice. But he will actually discard all of the other H2 cards, interestingly, so maybe nothing too interesting available for him there. Kyshantry seeds, opens the border conflict. HCsquared will lose something at his turn. Kyshantry gaining some additional resources. Finishes the Magic Castle, a very easy way for him to get out of corruption. Also, he has now a very solid culture production going. Goes for his last mine upgrade, spends all of his food to get 1 more population going, and then goes for Swordsman. And, I mean, with those upgrades, is now 12 strength, so is looking a bit threatening. He also has this open borders agreement with HCsquared, so HCsquared maybe has to be a bit careful at his next turn. Now it's Dot's turn, he seeds and a Reign of Terror is revealed. HCsquared now getting a bit punished for being the weakest. And Dots gets the chance to get a very early copy of Coal. I guess he will just go for an upgrade. Yeah, I think that's something that he has to do. There's also Railroads, so that I think is a very helpful card for him. And thanks to his good science production, he can go for that Coal upgrade and still has enough science to go for a government form at the next turn. If he gets Conmon, for example, at the next turn, then his position, I think, gets a really strong boost. And that yeah, might out of the sudden put him at a very nice position again. Ooh. I mean, now the losses are getting very big for HCsquared. He seeds with Eleanor. I think I agree with him that it's the right choice. It's just too strong to seed with her. But now he loses also a yellow token, so he loses the farm to the Border Conflict, will then lose that population to the Reign of Terror, and then will basically lose the yellow token completely. That's also quite funny. A little nice chain of events here. I guess nice just for us, not for HCsquared. HCsquared will now go for increasing his population. Let's see if he will rebuild his farm immediately, and also let's see if he will grab the iron or if he's just waiting for coal, or of course the Suez Canal. I think maybe that could be the right choice actually. He goes for another knight first. Goes even for another knight, so yeah, a bit unfortunate for him. Now he's actually the strongest, but now all of those nasty events, or not all of them, but 3 very bad ones are already out. Now, of course, with spending all of those resources and population to go for more knights, he doesn't have the chance to use his civil actions that nicely on some other stuff, so now maybe just taking the iron is fine, especially because he doesn't know at all how long he would have to wait for the second copy of coal. But his economy doesn't look too great. On the other hand, he really is a bit of a culture lead going at least. Kyshantry take something for 3. It's a copy of Republic, maybe something that he didn't want to have he didn't want to let this Republic be available for Dots. And now, of course, at this point, it's a big upgrade to the monarchy. He's also going for Newton. Can maybe, as soon as scientific method or journalisms are available, build one and then get a really strong boost. I think his economy might be looking very strong. Then also he takes the architecture. At some point, he will have a lot of science with Newton, and then the architecture is a strong technology to have. Also, he makes sure to get stronger again than HCsquared. Dot seeds with Nostradamus and opens the reds, but not a lot of food is lost here. Actually, the second copy of Coal is already available quite early as well. So in hindsight, but really only in hindsight, just waiting for the Coal would have worked out well for HCsquared. Dots interestingly goes for the team sports. Not sure if he maybe needs the strength also to make sure that he is prepared for defending. Maybe there's immigration or rebellion coming. That of course could also be a reason. He has of course the perfect knowledge about the event deck with Nostradamus. And yeah, with his setup, it looks like maybe he can go for Anthony Gaudi later on with having the drama in hand. But for now, he still needs to wait for an H2 government form, but we are still relatively early in H2. The swordsmen are still in the row and will now be discarded. HCsquared seats. The new deposits are revealed. That, of course, is quite strong for Kyshantry, who gets the most out of it. Dots didn't manage to upgrade the second coal mine quickly enough. HCsquared will take James Cook in hand. Will he elect him already this turn, or does he plan on keeping Eleanor for a bit longer, maybe finding some more colonies? But if he gets the Suez Canal, his economy is not looking too great for now, but the Suez can maybe give him the necessary boost that he needs. But taking a Suez with being on 4 civil actions, on the other hand, is a quite costly endeavor. So let's see if he will manage to get that Suez going. For now, he, after taking James Cook, will go for the iron. Maybe he will actually elect, and I just thought about it, he will elect James Cook so that he can go for more than 1 upgrade. So now he can actually go for 2 upgrades. Takes the engineering genius, willing to pass on the cannons here, but he has the Hussars tactic already, and with that maybe he just wants to spend his few civil actions that he is having more efficiently, and the engineering genius will be a very big help for him if he plans on going for the Suez. Maybe could also consider the Harvard College, though I think the help that he would get for his science production would be quite big. Kyshantry elects Newton this turn, and there's a copy of journalisms on the row. Yeah, I guess at the last turn he had a happy population available, but I think he put it into swordsman, so now he needs to destroy something, which is of course a bit costly, but still with Newton, the boost that he will get to his science production is still big enough to make that completely worth it. And, oh, wait, Is he actually just, I guess he's just building 2 journalisms, is even willing to disband a unit of warriors, interestingly, making him not the strongest any longer after his turn, but building 2 journalisms, and with building 2, that makes the difference between being able to go for the Republic already at the next turn or not, so he is now really forcing his quick economical development, and I think it might be the right choice. I guess he will also now take the cannons with his last civil action, yes. Also, of course, the journalisms are producing some culture as well, so he's now also sitting at 8 culture production. Dots, seats, and a wealthy territory is revealed. Again, HCsquared is able to win this colony, and has already his third. If he has a strong one in hand, the Suez Canal gets bigger and bigger for him. So it will be an interesting choice for him if he will be willing to go for the Harvard College, which is available now, or if he wants to leave his wonder slot free for Suez. Maybe he has to leave it free. On the other hand, Harvard would also be extremely helpful for him. So let's see what his choice will be. Or if maybe Dots will take the Harvard. I guess that could also be a real possibility. Let's see if that will actually be what happens here. He goes for another coal upgrade, goes for some upgrades to from warriors to riflemen, takes the selective breeding, doesn't take the Harvard College, instead goes for the cannons. He also has another strong wonder that he could be waiting for, and that is the Transcontinental Railroad. His science production is fine already. And we can see here that HCsquared is willing to go for the Harvard. I mean, there's at least a chance that he can go for both Harvard and Suez, even though I think civil action-wise that could get a bit difficult. But, I mean, with finishing the Harvard next turn, maybe he gets a government form going quickly enough. Will he just build a step, or is he taking revolutionary idea or the architecture? But that would again make it that it takes longer to get into a government form. Maybe it's best to be civil action efficient here. On the other hand, a revolutionary idea. Let's see. I think my gut feeling, without having thought about the turn, would be to just build a step. Let's see what he will be doing. Oh, he does something that I didn't present as an option to you. He actually takes the selective breeding here, which I guess is mostly a hate draft against kyshantry. There's no ocean liner. Kyshantry is now sitting at those HA farms. Soon maybe also will lose to yellow tokens to the end of the age. Needs then organized religion, and could now get a bit of a problem with his low population. We saw in the last game that I showed from the World Championship semifinals that Marta Pecheur really had some difficulties with being a low population. Let's see if something similar will happen to kyshantry. I think his general position is stronger though, so maybe even though it's of course a setback, he can still work around it. But yeah, I think it's a very expensive hate draft to do, but it could definitely also have quite some consequences for kyshantry. So an interesting idea here by HCsquared. Let's hope, or let's see if it maybe how much it affects himself with the amount of hand space that he's having at the moment, and with being that tight on civil actions. Kyshantry will develop the Republic, is now sitting at 8 civil actions, takes the revolutionary idea, the urban growth, the efficient upgrade, the organized religion, and a breakthrough, making use out of all of those civil actions, and yeah, that's of course quite a lot of value to get here. Dots, this turn goes for the selective breeding. We see that there is the Suez revealed, and HCsquared won't be able to go for the Suez, so do you think it was somewhat understandable to go for the Harvard College? Of course, it also heavily depends on if he has a strong colony in hand or not. But now he might get punished for his choice at least a little bit. The science production of the Harvard College, of course, will still be quite strong for him, and maybe also a bit unfortunate for him that the Suez Canal was revealed that quickly. But even if he can finish the Harvard at the next turn and then Suez gets revealed later, he is only for civil action still. So with taking the Harvard, I think there was definitely a real risk of not getting the Suez at all. Dots goes for some upgrades to selective breeding, has now enough food to get a population at the next turn, also takes the strategy to be a bit better prepared for the military. And I mean, one way to beat kyshantry, who science and culture production wise has a strong position, could be with the military, because with low population at some point it could get difficult for him to defend himself nicely. HCsquared this turn will finish the Harvard College, is now sitting at 9+5 science production, so that will be very helpful for him. He can go for a government form at the next turn, and then he also upgrades one more mine. Kyshantry offers an international trade agreement to HCsquared. HCsquared gets additional resource production, kyshantry additional food production. I guess it will take a long while until he can accumulate enough food, but who knows, maybe with taking reserves, frugality, it will help him to get a bit more population out. He then will develop the organized religion, will develop the architecture. He will now go for the Suez Canal. Let's see what colony he is having. I suspect him to finish the Suez immediately, and the colony that he got is the developed territory too, which is quite a solid one. And then he goes for upgrading, actually for building an organized religion. Is now at 9 culture production. The Suez helped him with his economy, especially the additional yellows. Now, with the additional food production from the International Trade Agreement, his population situation is looking a bit more solid again. Especially if he maybe gets a copy of frugality also at the next turn. He isn't willing to take one at this turn for 2 civil actions, but HCsquared still being very low in civil actions, so I think there's a good chance that he might get one at the next turn. Dots this turn can go for a government form finally, goes for the constitutional monarchy, takes Anthony Gaudi, a leader that I said earlier he is nicely prepared for, starts a bit of culture production. He has to be careful to not fall too much behind. He is already behind, so Anthony Gaudi will help him with that. Let's see if he goes for the drama or instead decides to go for the opera. He will go for the drama, I think that makes sense, it's just so much cheaper, and who knows how many operas he will even be able to build. He then goes for some more military, is now the strongest, and plays the revolutionary idea. Or what did he do? The cultural heritage. I saw some additional signs, but it was not enough to be a revolutionary idea. HCsquared will go for bread and circuses this turn, doesn't go for republic. Maybe he can hope to get an early H3 government form still, and he takes one of the frugalities, is also still sitting at 1 farm, so that's a bit tricky potentially for him. Kyshantry seats and opens the immigration, which Kyshantry is actually able to win. He has gone for some additional temples. I mean, we saw dots earlier. I think that was still... No, I think it was still for that event deck that Dots earlier on went for the team sports quite some turns ago, but I think not a lot of seeding had happened since then. And when he built the team sports, I thought maybe there could be immigration in there with him having had Nostradamus, and maybe it was seeded by Kyshantry, who made sure to build a lot of happy faces, even though he doesn't really need them, and I didn't notice it at his last turn, but I guess going for all of those religions was with the reason for that was the immigration that he is now the only player to get an additional population of. Kyshantry builds some additional cannons, takes a copy of frugality, that will be very helpful for him, takes a breakthrough, the wave of nationalism, the reserves, and also the cavalryman. Also reveals the Napoleonic army, making himself actually the weakest for now. Maybe his knowledge about some events to come, or just wants to be using H2 military actions instead of H3 military actions, or maybe it wants to threaten more strength with not having that many military actions. Dot seats and the barbarians are revealed. HCsquared will lose a population because of that. Dots will increase his population, builds the drama, is now at 9 culture production. He also got some additional culture production from the Rome roads, who now switched to culture production. He will go for another coal upgrade, and he is still going for the railroad. It's late, but getting 5 strength, going up to 12 resource production might still very well be worth it. Who knows? He might even get oil at the next turn, but he might not have enough science to easily justify that investment into oil. Alright, then we are at the first turn in H3 at the end of the third player's turn, so now it's time again to take a look at the overview. And yeah, I think here we have 2 civilizations who are clearly stronger than HCsquared's in terms of economical power. Dots and Kyshantry both having, at least for now, more civil actions. I guess HCsquared will of course now get an H2 government farm that will help him, but he's still sitting at 1 farm, will now lose a population, and doesn't have as much resource production as Kyshantry and Dots are having. But he has of course the culture lead, so let's see if he can maybe just defend that culture lead. And then we have Dots, who will soon get a railroad. thanks to Anthony Gaudi and now Rome Road switching to culture production, is not falling behind in culture any longer, is actually only 7 culture behind Kyshantry, so with getting even more economy with the railroad, he might be at a strong position. His science production might be a little bit limiting though, while for Kyshantry he's more than enough science. I think it will play also a big part when Kyshantry will get military theory. I think that would just be a technology that helps him quite a lot, and he has more than enough science for it. I also could really see that he will actually go for oil, which would again boost his resource production. He could go for multimedia. I think he's nicely prepared. Of course, if there's mechanized agriculture, he can go for that. He missed out on the selective breeding, but he's managed to play around it. I think with going for reserves and frugality, he will get a fine amount of population out. Also showcasing that, of course, such a hate draft can have some consequences, but there are ways to play around such a low population game. Also in 2-player games, I'm not that often willing to just instantly deny selective breeding or something to lock my opponent down in low food. It's always is always the chance that you can just play around it somehow. And yeah, so I think at this point definitely every player still has a chance to win, but of course I have to make a guess now. And I mean, Kyshantry could still get limited, but I just think if he goes into multimedia or oil, he again will get a big boost. And for dots, I don't see as clear of a path. I mean, he will get a railroad now, that will give him a boost as well. But I think I have more faith in Kyshantry's position here, and I do think HCsquared culture lead is not big enough to justify the economical disadvantages that he's having, so I'm guessing Kyshantry is the winner, which of course would mean a lot for him for the standings, maybe giving him a really strong position. Then I guess Dots as the second and HCsquared as the third placed player. Alright, let's see how that will play out. HCsquared will go for the Conmon, has a choice here between Conmon and Republic, and actually also Communism, but he doesn't have enough science to go for it this turn, so I think it's fine to go for the Conmon this turn and also have enough science for some other stuff. He takes a copy of Air Forces, that will be helpful for him, and then also a copy of Richland. While the Air Forces are helpful, maybe he just needs to take them. On the other hand, getting a copy of reserves, being able to blade it for food, and finally get some population going. I mean, I guess he has actually is still a dead area of the yellow bank, so he can increase his population at the next turn, but then he doesn't have enough to get another one. But yeah, probably the Air Force are too important, but also a bit costly that he needs to take them. I don't think he will go for them in the near future. But of course he needs to worry about and Kyshantry gets this early copy of military theory. I'm very interested to see what he will do now. Multimedias are there, oil is there, military theory is there. He can't go for all of those things, so let's see what he chooses to do. He first of all interestingly placed a wave of nationalism for 3 resources, dropping down in strength at the last turn, maybe partly to do with hoping that he would gain some more resources out of that yellow card. He then increases population with the frugality. I guess he will now go for the cavalryman, and maybe both cavalryman and military theory, increasing his strength by quite a bit. And now maybe taking multimedia and reserves or something. I think if he doesn't go for oil immediately, it doesn't really need to take it. I guess he will get out of corruption. And also the possibility to build even more strength, making him quite threatening with playing reserves and increasing his population. And let's see, I guess reserves is maybe just too solid, especially now that he's maybe planning on going for a bit more of a military-centered play, but multimedia could also still be a fine pick with Newton. He will go with the reserves though, which I think is fine. Dots seeds and opens the strategic territory, which HCsquared is able to win, getting another colony for Cook. Maybe he's still being a bit sad of not being able to get the Suez Canal going. And he wins it for knights, which is nice. The 4 additional strength will be helpful for him. And now he actually has even enough food to just... Oh, wait. I think when I went to his production phase, I just paused at the moment where the production was already evaluated, but not the consumption, because I saw him at 3 food, but he has actually 2. Then again, it is a bit painful to not have the reserves now. He has the Harvard College, though, and can maybe take and play one if he has enough civil actions for it. Dots will go for the engineering. He will use it immediately to finish the railroad, but I think now he really needs to take this revolutionary idea, otherwise I think he might be too low in science, but I expect him to take it. Yes, he also goes for the multimedia, which is of course quite strong for him to have with Anthony Gaudi, and I mean he can build him now with the engineering for 8 resource, has the 12 resource production going, that's also not bad. Let's see though if he can justify his investment to multimedia, or if he has to rather be afraid of maybe kyshantry going for something military heavy. HCsquared offers a military alliance to Dots, that of course will help both of them to be somewhat safe from kyshantry. HCsquared will take the reserves from the row, place them for food, increases his population, takes the rockets. Interestingly, builds a farm, I guess that helps him to then, in general, get more populations out now at the next turn. He can get 2 more out at the next turn, has the rockets in hand, which could be an indicator for something like mechanized army, for example, as he has the hussars and no H2 event in hand. Kyshantry tries an aggression against HCsquared. The annex, I think, could have been quite painful for HCsquared, but maybe also thanks to the military alliance pact, he is able to defend that aggression. Kyshantry now getting a relatively early copy of Mechanized Agriculture. If he's going for both 2 upgrades, I think he's also in a nice position to just take and finish Red Cross at the next turn. So let's see if that is something that might be happening. He is now at 12 food at the next turn, has a copy of reserves in hand, takes the Engineering Genius, the military build-up, and the urban growth. I guess there's not really a big danger of the Red Cross being discarded before his next turn, so that might now be a real thing that he could just go for at the next turn. Dots seeds another colony is revealed, which Dots is able to win. Let's see how much he has to pay for it. Just 1 unit, I think then it's a nice grab for him, even when it's a rifleman. He has of course lost his colonization cards, which potentially could make it a bit more difficult for him to defend. He has the multimedia in hand, but actually takes the computers now, maybe needing his population for the military, or maybe doesn't want to commit one into multimedia, but maybe still wants to get some science production going. Maybe he will even go for Sid Meier, who knows. He upgrades a lab, upgrades another lab, plays the revolutionary idea, the strategy, and goes for the satellites. I think it makes sense that he doesn't go for Sid Meier, still needs the science production. Gaudi is providing him some very nice value, and I think leaving himself open to Pierre is just too strong. I think that is the right choice. He then takes the satellites, who knows, maybe he will get, or maybe already has, an impact of progress. Also he upgrades a warrior, being now 25 strength. HCsquared will increase his population 2 times, will go for the rockets, builds one, builds another one. Maybe his plan could also be to go for the Napoleonic army, so then he would need to hope to go get modern infantry soon. He is now at 28 strength. Kyshantry seeds and the immigration is revealed, but no one has any unhappy workers, and both Dots and HCsquared didn't take the Red Cross, so Kyshantry cannot take the Red Cross, plays reserves for food, finishes the Red Cross. There are actually lots of colonies in play, 7. So 37 culture gained by Kyshantry, and now he has even the culture lead. So I think things are looking good for him, and my guess at the end could come true here. Guess now maybe it just takes the reserves or even the movies if he wants to have something to invest his culture into. And he indeed goes for the movies, has the military build-up, so maybe he's not really afraid of any military pressure that his opponents could go for. Dots offers the international tourism to HCsquared. They both have a pact ongoing, maybe just trying to keep Kyshantry in check, who already has quite a lead in the standings. So yeah, both of them now gaining some additional culture production. Dots actually quite a bit more than HCsquared, but HCsquared still being willing to accept this pact. And yeah, Dots goes for an additional arena, which seems a bit odd at first, but of course he might really hoping to get Pierre here, and then the additional arena will be quite fine. But he also goes for an additional drama, takes the tanks, builds one, takes the reserves and the urban growth. And with building the tank and the team sports, he's now actually also the strongest, so the strength from the team sports also immediately matters. He doesn't go for Marlene, is maybe still hoping for Pierre here. And the strength matters indeed, because the refugees are revealed, and Dots is now the strongest, gains an additional population. HCsquared will lose one. Yeah, I think his position might just lose a bit of power here. Dots is already also coming now closer in culture. I think HCsquared It will be difficult for him to not lose this game, even though his position is still somewhat solid for now. He takes the tanks with him going for rockets. My guess was that he has the mechanized armies. Let's see if that is indeed the case. For now, he can maybe also just stay in Hussars if he wants to get more draws earlier. Is still the strongest nonetheless. And yeah, for now, it doesn't reveal any tactic. Kyshantry then goes for the civil service, develops it, goes for the space flight, which I guess also will score him a lot of points. The wonders left are for fast food chains and Manhattan Project. There is beer coming down the row, but with with Kyshantry not grabbing him for now, he will probably let him be available for dots. And then he also will go for the Air Forces and the Democracy. Let's see if dots will anti-H or not. Also Kyshantry going up to 39 strength with moving a swordsman into cavalryman. Dots seeds and opens the wealthy territory, another colony won by HCsquared. Even though now there's a good chance that he will lose Cook before his next turn, he sends the tanks away and has now some additional resources to work with. Dots this turn will develop the multimedia very cheaply with Anthony Gaudi. Builds one, is now at 18 culture production, builds another one, takes Pierre. Let's see if he ends the age or not. Should he end the age or not? Guess he has more culture production now. But on the other hand, Kyshantry is taking the Air Force. I think it's maybe too dangerous to not anti-age military-wise. He doesn't have a lot of resource at the moment. I think he needs to anti-age because there's a really big threat of wars, despite him having some good culture production here. He also elects Pierre, and indeed he is taking the rockets, can maybe go for some more technologies at the next turn. Maybe there could be impact of technology in the deck. Also, who has seeded at impact, who is on top? Green, so dots. Let's see what impact that will be. He is also the one who has seeded 2 already in the next deck, so that is maybe a bit of an advantage for him here, having the most impacts seeded so far. Ooh, interesting. There's actually a peace treaty offered from HCsquared to Dots, but Dots rejects it, interestingly. Why is that? Because it seems like a safe amount of just one additional culture for both of them. There will be Olympic Games, and HCsquared for the moment is actually more strength than... I mean, now, of course, after playing the mechanized army tactic. So that at the first... wait. I guess the military alliance would have gotten cancelled if this pact would have been accepted, and Dots, who knows, maybe needs this additional strength potentially, maybe also depending on whether Kyshantry sacrifices something for Imechi or not, in order to defend himself. And then, of course, it would make sense to reject this pact, but I was a bit confused for a moment here. And then HCsquared goes for the professional sports. Build some. Those are, of course, helpful for a lot of impacts, but will that be enough? He also gets the endowment, plays it for 3 culture. I think the impacts will be too harsh for him. One very big one is, of course, the impact of colonies. So maybe that is one thing, if he has that in there, that could maybe be enough for him to not finish last. Kyshantry seeds opens the impact of balance, was seeded by Dots. And actually, Kyshantry is limited by science production for a moment with seeing his food and resource production. I thought, oh, that is a big balance, but he has only 6 science production, so Kyshantry and Dots get the same amount out of that. HCsquared only gets 6 out of it. Kyshantry didn't go for Pierre, but he can now go for Einstein and at least develop 2 more techs, goes for the Air Forces, goes for the movies, dispenser unit of swordsman, plays the military build-up, dispenser unit of cavalryman, finishes the spaceflight for 29 points, increases his population, builds a movie, and then builds an Air Force maximizing his impact of competition, also just getting 1 strength stronger than HCsquared for a potential impact of strength. Now it's Dot's turn, he will go for the Olympic Games. He also can maybe just finish the fast food chains if he wants to. I guess that might be the best thing for him to do. The impact of competition is revealed, which is quite close, but is the best one for HCsquared. Dots develops the satellites, plays the reserves, he is now he can increase his population, build maybe a warrior, and now go for the fast food chains. Yeah, I think that looks best. The fast food chains giving him at least 24 points, which is a solid amount, and that's take a look at the culture before the final impacts. You can see kyshantry has a lead. He's also well prepared for impacts, but Dots, I think, has seeded more of them. And there are some like science, culture that could be strong for him, but there's impact of strength, which would be a very big swing for kyshantry. So I'm not sure if Dots will be able to overtake kyshantry, but it's certainly possible. For HCsquared though, even with an impact of colonies, I think he's just too much behind at this point. And as suspected earlier, his economical power was just not big enough in order to keep up with the culture race. But let's see who will be able to win it, kyshantry or Dots. The first impact is the impact of government, plus 23 for kyshantry, plus 20 for Dots. So kyshantry now having an 18 culture lead. We then have the impact of variety that also looks strong for kyshantry, but even stronger for Dots. So both have a very great variety. Dots, of course, at Anthony Gaudi, who is always helping with that impact, or the setup that you want to go with him is helping with that. HCsquared doesn't score too well in the impact so far. We have the impact of science, so now Dots is again getting close, is only 9 culture behind kyshantry. We have the impact of colony, so that is indeed in there, but it also helps kyshantry a little bit up against Dots, so Dots still being 12 culture behind. Let's see if there is actually an impact that will close the gap, but I suspect that kyshantry will win this game. And we have the impact of happiness, which gives both Dots and HCsquared some more points against kyshantry, but it's not enough for Dots to overtake kyshantry, meaning kyshantry is actually able to also win this game, which I think leaves him in a very strong position for the standings. Dots made put off a nice fight. I mean, at the beginning of H3, I guessed kyshantry at the winner, having more faith in his position, but Dots made it really close, waited for Pierre, did some nice stuff with Anthony Gaudi, made sure to be well prepared for the military. Also, the refugees were revealed at quite a nice time for him, so he nicely kept up despite kyshantry going for both Red Cross and the space flight, but at the end it still was not enough and kyshantry is able to win. HCsquared had some potential, maybe needed a Suez at the end. Maybe he needed to just hope to somehow get both Harvard and Suez, or maybe he should have left himself open. It's a tough call, but his position at the end wasn't powerful enough to compete with kyshantry's and Dot civilization in this game. Alright, so an interesting game to take a look at, and now we can also take a look at the standings, and we can take a look at them after all the 3-player games are finished. I don't know how they are looking yet, and I have some fear that, who knows, maybe kyshantry hasn't already that big of a lead that the 2-player games maybe doesn't even matter for the standings, but that we will find out now. And gladly for us, as you can see here, it's not everything decided yet. Kyshantry indeed has a very strong position, but he has also lost one of the 3-player games, meaning he's at 19 points. It's looking very good for him, but both Wolves and Dots and HCsquared maybe, I guess, if he wins all 3, kyshantry loses all 3, then one out of Wolves and Dots will win 2, then there would be a 3-way tie. Who knows? Maybe even HCsquared still has maybe even all players still have a chance of winning the group. We will take a look at one 2-player game out of that group, and then let's see if kyshantry can keep the lead or if there will be a nice comeback happening. And I mean, Wolves, you saw him in the standings at the beginning of this video. He was at 1 point, but he now managed to win 2 3-player games and is now at 11 points, meaning that he already started a bit of a nice comeback, and who knows, or let's see if he will be able to complete that or follow up with that. Alright, then I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. I hope you're all excited to how those World Championship semi-final groups will be finishing, and then thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.